Good morning, friends, and welcome to a Disney Life podcast. This is episode 59. My name is Rachel, and I'm joined today by my co host, Missy. Hello, Missy. How are you doing?
Hey, Rachel, I'm pretty great today. Hi, listeners. Thanks for being with us today. We appreciate you tuning in with us.
So, today we have a very special episode. Missy will be talking to us about her recent trip to Disneyland. And this was an incredibly special trip. There's a lot of special things we'll be talking about in this episode and the next. But I think probably one of the most special things about it was that this was your daughter's first trip, both of your daughter's first trip to Disneyland, correct?
Yes, I have been there several times for business reasons out in that area, but neither of my daughters have ever been there. It was something that I had in the back of my mind, had started planning back in 2019 to go in 2020. And that never followed through. We never followed through with that, of course, for various reasons. And things just hadn't worked out with our schedule since then. So we have been planning and budgeting for this trip for several years now. And it's kind of surreal that we actually made it there. If you're a new listener, you may not know I am on the East Coast. I live in Pennsylvania with my family. It's a much longer trip to get out there to California than it is to fly down to Florida. We have so many direct flight options that are within 2.5 hours of my house, of multiple airports. I'm in the northeastern Pennsylvania area, the Scranton area. So we can get to Philly or Newark or New York City or Trenton. So many airports to get us down to Florida easily, but it's a whole other hassle getting out to California. So that kind of kept us from it all these years. So I'm just thrilled that we finally made it there. And I am excited to share it with you, Rachel, because we haven't talked about it really at all yet. We've been busy since I returned. And with all of our listeners, I'm glad they're here today to listen to me chat through it. So, but first, we had some other things we wanted to talk about.
Yes, we do. So we received some listener feedback recently that you guys really liked when we talked about recent news that was announced for the Disney parks and Disney Cruise Line. So we thought when the time arises that when we get some news coming out, we'll definitely dedicate some time to our episodes to give you guys the most recent news. And we do have quite a bit of news to go over today. So Missy, where do you want to start us off at?
So I think we had talked recently in an episode about the new pirate animatronic at Pirates of the Caribbean in Disneyland. So I'll talk a little bit more about that during my trip report section, but I would like to say there were some rumors online that there was such an uproar about it that they changed it already. That was not correct. I believe what really happened was it was down for a day. They made some corrections to it, and it's been up and running since then. And I must say it was much more impressive in person than what I had seen on some videos ahead of time leading up to our trip. So overall, I think it looks really good. I was
Okay.
impressed with it. So
That's good to know. I guess if something's down for a day, people will just run with that news and
right,
try to be out there that it's already changed. But I would have been surprised if Disney had already changed it that quickly.
right,
I'm
right.
sure that was not an inexpensive upgrade to put into that attraction.
Absolutely, yes.
So next, we also saw some Hallmark ornaments are going to be released for this holiday season, and there were three attractions that the release had on there. You have Soarin', you have Mickey Mouse sitting on, I don't even know what you would call that, the bench seat for
Glider. I
Soarin'.
think they
The
call
gli
them gliders.
Okay, the glider. And then you had the Pixar Pal Around, which is the giant Ferris wheel over at Disney's California Adventure. And then Dumbo. I think Dumbo was my favorite of the three. It was just really cute.
I think many people just have a soft spot for Dumbo. So
That's true
even
too.
for somebody who may not be a big parks fan, the Dumbo ornament may be appealing simply because most people know who Dumbo is, even if they haven't experienced the ride. So it seems Hallmark and Disney really have quite a connection this year between the
Yeah.
movie that we talked about recently and the new ornament collection. I think there might be some other things out too. Like I saw some castle tree topper or something like that at some point, all kinds of stuff. I don't think that's brand new, but they do have some different things. I remember in recent years, the Haunted Mansion collection. I have a friend who,
Yes.
and it plays Haunted Mansion music, and it's like a whole tree worth of ornaments. So it's not a new collaboration there, but they do seem to be enhancing some things and definitely are not cutting back on their Hallmark connection there. So
Very nice. Another thing that was recently announced is that if you are staying at Fort Wilderness, you will notice that the Meadow swimming pool has been greatly expanded. What they've done is added a zero entry pool and an additional deck space alongside the existing pool area that has doubled that space for everyone to enjoy. And now I have not, Fort Wilderness, I think, is one of two resorts that I have not stayed at on property, but I have driven around it, been there a couple times for some dinners and things, and, it's a large pool area already, so I am
Mhm.
definitely interested to see how big of an area they have made this over now at Fort Wilderness.
Ever we get pool enhancements, it's obviously a great thing, but especially when they have zero entry pools. Years ago, we did not have those at every resort. Obviously, even up to now, I mean, this is a brand new thing over at the fort. But when my kids were younger, I could remember it just being so convenient to be able to let them splash in that area. And I think it's still necessary, even though we see more of the splash areas geared for kids, younger kids to climb around and use a slide or dump bucket or whatever. Those zero entry areas are ideal for toddler age kids, I think, who are wanting to be in the water, but you don't want them in there with your hands not on them super deep. And, you want to let them have a little bit of freedom in the water also and get comfortable with it. You can't just be in there hands on all the time. You could be, I guess, but it's more
Yeah.
fun for everybody to be a little hands free, sit down there with them and let them splash around in the water. And that's fun for all. So I love it when we see our Disney resorts updating their family experiences like that. And this is
Yeah.
certainly a great option.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Another thing that is new at Fort Wilderness, and I shouldn't say new, it's refreshed. They've also refreshed the reception outpost area where guests will check in for their stay. From what I understood, they kind of made it where guests will be able to interact and kind of connect with cast members at an easier level than what they had before. So if you have stayed there in recent years, you'll notice now that a lot of times the cast members don't stand behind a desk anymore, that they had the counter there that they would stand behind. A lot of times the cast members will go out into the line and interact with guests there, especially if it's something that can be done quickly and then move on to the next guest. Now, you do see guests still at the counter, they will bring guests over, but Disney has really pushed for cast members to step out from behind the counter and get close with guests and greet them. And I think that's something that really makes people feel welcome when they first arrive, that somebody is willing to connect with you so easily instead of just pointing to you and motioning you to come over and come talk to them. So,
Right. They seem to be right out there in the center of a lot of these lobbies, either directing you to the counter if it's a necessity there, or oftentimes able to help you on the tablet that they're carrying around. So it is nice when you walk into a resort and you get that more personal welcome than just having to immediately go stand in a line.
yes, and there are also statues. If you look up in that area now, you will see Donald Duck's nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, enjoying some activities like archery and fishing up in the rafters of that building. So, over the years, they've really put a lot of characters into the resorts. You've got Moana at the Polynesian Resort. That just what came at the top of my head, but there's a lot of character nods to a lot of the resorts, but I love it when they put these
Mhm.
classic iconic characters into it. To me, that is Disney more than Moana is Disney. I know Moana is a Disney film, but seeing Mickey Mouse, seeing Huey, Dewey, and Louie, all of those there, that to me that's what I wanna see at the resorts and at the parks.
So, Rachel, this wasn't something we planned to talk about, but I love to throw surprise things at you because
Oh,
that's what we
fun,
do
yeah.
here. You mentioned Moana, and it kind of sparked a thought here for me. So, the live action Moana is now out in theaters. I have not seen it yet. My kids are kind of torn on it, which is interesting to me because I have 2 teenage daughters. They're pretty much in line with their love of Disney and their favorite things there and what movies they love. But for this movie, one of them can't wait to see it, and the other says she's kind of boycotting it because it's too
Oh.
soon for a live action. Like, Moana is too new of a movie to have another one made already. What do you think of that?
So, I am not too big of a fan of the live actions.
Okay.
I would much
Mhm.
rather have original stories. Now, my oldest daughter goes through favorite princesses about once a month. She has a new favorite. So Moana was number 1 in her heart for about 3 months, and she's kind of mentioned it, but she hasn't pushed it at all. So which I haven't pushed it either because going to the movies is really expensive.
It is.
And yeah, but, we've watched a few of the live actions. I think Disney is probably more interested in getting The Rock into the film than
Yes.
they are
And I
anything else.
and that would have been a deal breaker for my kid who is excited to see it. She said if he wasn't in it, it would have been different, but the fact that he was in it and that will seem more authentic as per the original version and how it was intended. So I really haven't heard much on it, like if the story had changed at all or if anything is different. So I guess I do need to get out there and
Yeah.
see it eventually. We did see Toy Story 5, which we absolutely loved. I know it's not Disney, but we really do want to see the new Minions movie.
Yeah.
Also, get in and see that at some point. So we are not typically a family that goes to the movies very much either because like you said, the cost is so expensive. We would
It is.
rather kind of wait until the movies are streaming where we can view them for free or a fraction of the cost and save that money towards our travel budget.
Yeah.
That's just been our way of life for several years now.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
we do have a drive-in locally though that you could pay one price and see two movies. You just have to be able to stay up until like 2 a.m. to see them. So
Yeah, my kids can.
we'll see.
So, yeah.
Yeah. You're not
Yeah.
there yet. Okay, back on track. Sorry.
No, no problem. So, also at Walt Disney World, Hollywood Studios did recently, very recently announce when the new Magic of Disney Animation, when that building will be open
Mhm.
officially. And there's a lot going on inside of that. There's Drawn to Wonderland, there's Off the Page, Olaf Draws, Once Upon a Studio Theater. There's so much going in there, and that will officially open September 14th of this year. So, September 14th, 2026. Then they will have the things that are inside of that building ready to go and to welcome guests. And I'm excited for it, but I'll be leaving that day to come home for my next
Oh,
trip.
you'll just
So
miss it. Okay,
I
well,
will
we'll need
just
to
miss it.
research that and maybe dedicate an episode to it when we get to that point because there are a lot of new things going in there. And I love seeing a nod again and recognition for actual animation because we both remember back when it was MGM Studios and we were
Yes.
much more focused on being an actual live studio and some focus on animation there and what the Imagineers were working on and doing. We really have gotten away from that. So I love seeing a bit of return there and I'd love to talk through that once
Yeah,
it's open
absolutely.
and we know
I
exactly what we have
completely
there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Another thing that was recently announced, Disneyland welcomed their 1 billionth guest, and I was terribly disappointed that it was not your photo that I
Yeah,
saw on that
spoiler
announcement.
alert, you guys, it was not me. It was not me, but wouldn't that have been something?
That
But
would have
no,
been something,
it was not. But
absolutely.
congratulations to whoever was the 1 billionth
Yes.
guest. But
Yes, that's pretty amazing and impressive that Disneyland is still going so strong after all of these years and to welcome their 1 billionth guest, and I have no idea how they actually keep count of that, but good for them.
yeah,
Kudos.
I wonder what like the likelihood of it actually being the 1 billionth guest. What's the over under on that? Like a hundred
Yeah.
thousand people off or what?
I saw a news story about a guy, I don't remember what number guest he was, but I think he's got, like, tickets for life or something, and it was pretty cool, so,
I saw that too. I think that was Disney World. I wasn't sure if
yeah.
that was a real story or not, but I did see an article of like he got it when he was a kid and allegedly still has it now. So
Yeah.
that was something I just saw on my Facebook feed. So wasn't sure if it was
Yeah.
or
It
not.
didn't
But
look AI, but, you
yeah,
never know.
but congratulations to Disneyland because that's
Yes.
fantastic for them to have been able to create that much magic for that
Yeah,
many
and
people
here's to
over
a
the
billion
years.
more over the
That's
years.
true. Absolutely.
And finally, we do have D23 coming up soon that will be taking place in August, mid-August, and I always look forward to this every single year. I joke that I'm going to mess up my husband's YouTube algorithm when D23 comes out because I hop onto his account and watch the live announcements for the Disney Parks and Resorts Showcase. So I am very excited to see that. And Missy, tell us who's hosting that this year.
So they have said Neil Patrick Harris is going to
Yeah.
be hosting this parks panel this year, which it will be parks and experiences. We anticipate information for a lot of Disney products out there. So rumor has it it's going to be a big one this year. You know, Disney always likes to impress their guests at D23. The D23 guests are some of the most loyal Disney fans out there. I could remember when they first started D23, it was, I instantly joined and I still have a long sleeve t-shirt that says charter member. It says D23 at the top and charter member down the side because it was a cool thing for Disney fans to do. I don't remember when that was, like maybe 2011 or so. It's been a
I
while.
don't
It's
remember.
been
Yeah, it's been a
quite a
while.
while. But I've never been to a D23 event, but I have friends who have been,
Mhm.
and it's always a super amazing experience for them. So I love that Disney does this for some of their most loyal fans. And I think that we may need an episode right after that announcement so that we can kind of go over all of the exciting things announced. As long as they are as exciting as we hope they'll be. So
Yes.
stay
Yeah.
tuned on that. So that'll be coming after August 15th. That's the day of that panel.
Yeah. So that's all that I have for any recent news. Do you have anything else listed for
No,
our
I do
note for
not.
her? Okay,
No, I don't.
perfect.
So we're
Well,
good
with
on
that,
that.
let's get right into Disneyland.
Okay.
So we're getting into Missy's time at Disneyland now. So, Missy, what were the dates? Who'd you travel with and where'd you stay?
Okay, so as I mentioned, this was a first trip for both of my daughters. So we definitely wanted to stay at one of Disneyland's hotels. And I think it's debatable which one is the best one. And again, my kids were split on this. One wanted the Grand Californian, one wanted Disneyland Hotel. But for this trip, we opted to stay at the Disneyland Hotel. And I'll explain more of that later, our reasoning for that and the conveniences we had there. But, Disneyland is so much different than Walt Disney World because it's so much more compact, it's easier to get around. And there are so many hotels there that are just as close or closer than some of the Disney hotel options. But for this trip in particular, it had been something we'd been planning for years. We really, really wanted to stay at one of Disney's hotels. So our trip started bright and early on the morning of July 7th. We had a little bit of wiggle room with our timing for when this trip would take place. Our main thing was that we wanted it to be after Soarin' Across America opened because they definitely wanted to see that. I know it had opened at Walt Disney World back in May, but we had not been there since then. And it opened just before the 4th of July out at Disneyland. So we definitely wanted a trip that was after the 4th of July holiday so that Soarin' Across America was open and so that the holiday crowds had headed home by that point
Yeah.
was our hope. So that's what's up with our timing. So it's my daughters and I, and my oldest daughter's boyfriend Avery came along with us as well. He has been on several Disney trips with us at this point, and it was his first trip to Disneyland also. And then we had my cousin Jenny joined us, and also a couple other friends who have been part of other groups that we have been in. Our friends Heidi and Jen and Tammy were all out there at different times as well. So our group varied from 5 to 8, depending on the day of the week and what our activity was. But,
Oh, wow.
our motto is always the more the merrier with this
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I was absolutely thrilled and just felt so blessed that we had some friends who wanted to make that trip out with us to make it even more special for my daughter. So thank you if you're listening, and I know you are. So thank you so much for making the trip with us. So, like I said, this trip started bright and early. And by that, I mean, way before it was bright. It was 12:30 a.m. We had to leave the house on July 7th. We had a very early flight, a 5 o'clock flight out of an airport that's 2.5 hours from home. So we got up and got in the car at 12:30 a.m. and started the drive. So when you're starting that early in the morning, your clock is going to be your internal clock's going to be a little bit off. And when you're flying across the country and you're a 3 hour difference in time, that kind of proved to be a little tricky during the week also. But we did pretty well with it. So we got to the airport with no issues. I personally love traveling that time of day because there's no traffic. We travel the Pennsylvania Turnpike, the Northeast extension, and it's typically an awful road to be on. So in the middle of the night when there's nobody around, that's pretty ideal. We had a few issues once we got to the Philly airport because they have just never really recovered from their staffing shortage in 2020. And they have terminals that do not offer TSA PreCheck, and they also have one terminal that doesn't open until 4:15 in the morning,
Oh,
which
wow.
seems early, and it is early, but when you have flights that are boarding at 4:20 in the morning, 4:15 is just not early enough. So we
Yeah.
stood in a ridiculously long line. We thought we had an hour extra time, and we ended up just making it to our gate in time for boarding. So it was disappointing. I try to avoid that airport when I can because they do seem to be very slow there. I felt like our trip kind of got off to a bad start because when we got into the pre-check line or not the pre-check line, the TSA line, no pre-check, just TSA, it split at one point. And I was kind of watching and I can see there were two agents working in one area and one in the other. So three total people for everybody arriving in this area of the airport. And I thought, well, let's go where there's two people because that'll be twice as fast, right? So it's right after we made that split, they pulled somebody and put them over on the other side. So
Oh,
it
no.
was opposite of what we thought. And
No.
everybody's trying to stay cheery because we are so excited, but also we're tired and we were getting frustrated. And then we're starting to panic, are we going to make it there by the time our boarding group is is called. We flew with American Airlines. We're usually very happy with them. But one thing that really irks me is if you pay for or have the ability to take a carry-on bag that goes in the overhead bin, but people who sit further back in the plane put it over your spot, and then you have to get way to the back to the plane to get it. That just drives me crazy. I just think that's so rude of people to do. Like, put it over your space, and if everybody puts it over their space, you should pretty much be okay. We were boarding group 5, which usually puts you in a perfectly fine position with them, except for we were worried we weren't going to make it there by 5, but we did just in time. We didn't have issues. Normally, I wouldn't be super concerned, if we're just flying from here to our destination, but we had a connection and we didn't have time to waste getting our luggage from, like, waiting for everybody to get off the plane so you
Yeah,
can climb yourself to the back of the plane and
it's
getting
true.
your
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a domino effect of how it holds you up. But luckily, we were able to put our bags right overhead and get off the plane quickly because we had a super tight connection in Dallas Fort Worth on the way. We had to switch terminals there and ride a tram. We were rushing to try to make a bathroom stop before we had to deal with boarding again. And the bathroom in that terminal was closed for cleaning. So then
No.
again, things felt like they were not going our way, but we were on the way to the happiest place on earth. So it was not going to let us down. But we did all end up needing to use the restroom on the plane when we boarded because there was no way we were going to make it all the way out to California. So overall, our flights went great. We flew into the John Wayne Airport, SNA,
Mm,
out there in Santa Ana, California. It was an absolutely fantastic experience. It's a smaller airport. Everything went smooth there. My previous trips in the last couple of years out to Disneyland, I flew into LAX, and that's a whole other beast. So
yeah.
I was thrilled for this trip that we were able to fly into the John Wayne Airport out there. So
Yes,
we
and it's a
land
much easier ride to get over to Disneyland from that airport too, so it's
right.
definitely preferred.
It was easier in so many ways, and fortunately, it ended up being the less expensive option for us.
Mm,
Usually, it's less expensive for me to fly direct from Philadelphia to LAX, but in this case, it was less to fly with that connection in Dallas Fort Worth and land in Santa Ana. So we absolutely love that. And we actually were on the ground and heading out to the rideshare area by 10:30 a.m. California time. So we had almost a whole day ahead of us there, which was very exciting, but also we
yeah.
had to wake basically a whole day. So we did use rideshare. Their rideshare area was very organized. It's one thing I'm always interested in seeing at various airports how they handle that. They did have I think it was level 3, a top level of their parking garage just across the street from bag claim, where it was very well organized. We ordered a lift and he was right there to pick us up very quickly and got us out of there. So none of that curbside congestion.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll have that pick up and drop off or right there curbside like at MCO, and everybody's crowded around and trying to get a spot and 4 ways are on and security's telling people to get out of the way. It's always a whole thing. So that was not my experience at this airport. They did a fantastic job. So we headed
Yeah. I was gonna say I've done the same thing there at John Wayne, and there was nobody else up there around us, and it was a very pleasant experience because you didn't have to be on the lookout for somebody, like, "Oh, that is my rideshare because there's nobody else up here." And it was
well,
great, yes,
there
highly
were a
recommend.
handful of people up there. I would say probably 5 or 6 other
Yeah,
families up there or individuals up there waiting for a ride, but it was nothing like the chaos that you see at some other
yes.
airports. So that was really nice. So like I said, we stayed at the Disneyland Hotel. One of the main draws for us there was the pool area with the monorail slide. One of my
Mhm.
kids really wanted to see that. I love the convenience of it and the location to the monorail in downtown Disney. So that was something that I was interested in. But the big selling factor was I was able to actually get a discounted room rate there for a club level room. And
Oh, nice.
and that was very nice. So they just refurbished their club level room. I think it used to be called the E-Ticket Lounge. It is now called the High Key Club. It is the top floor, the 11th floor of one of the towers there at the Disneyland Hotel. I think it was the Adventureland Tower. Yes, it must have been Adventureland because Frontier's the one on the end, and I think Fantasy is the main building with the lobby. Anyway, if you're not familiar with club level at Disney resorts, they have a lounge that's typically open from around 6 or 6:30 a.m. until 10 p.m. at night, and they serve snacks and beverages all day long. This includes soda and water. They did have bottled water available for you to take along with you. They had tap water, chilled tap water, and sparkling water as well. They do have alcoholic beverages. So we decided that with the discounted offer we were able to find, this was going to be a great use for us because this hotel is close enough that we knew we would be taking afternoon breaks. That's just kind of our Disney style on almost all trips, especially when we had 4 full park days out there. I knew we'd be taking breaks, and I thought this could give us a really good value in the
Yeah.
food that we're able to get at the lounge. And it did work out just as I had hoped it would. Most days, we only needed or chose to purchase one meal other than the food that was available at the club
Oh,
lounge.
wow.
So,
That's a great value overall, especially when you are feeding 4 people in your
right,
party. Yeah.
right, absolutely. And our room was actually 5 because my cousin that went along with us stayed in our room also.
Okay.
So that factored into it also. So they were super sweet there at the High Key Club. There was always a host stationed right there at the desk where you enter. You do need your key card to get in, but I had stopped at the front desk when we first arrived and picked up a card. There was no wait there. Again, like you mentioned, chatting about Fort Wilderness, there was a cast member out there asking what you needed, directing you on your way. So that was very easy. They welcomed us with some welcome drinks, which was a super cute little option. They had a sparkling option, which included Prosecco, and then the regular option was a non alcoholic option. I don't really know what was in it, but it was fruity and it was pink. So it was super cute and it had
Oh,
a
that's
little
good.
flower on it. So it was just really nice. And at this point, then we were feeling happy.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
made
yeah.
it out there successfully. We didn't miss any flights. We had all of our luggage with us. Everything was going smoothly. Like it really just couldn't get any better. So we spent some time there in the club lounge. It's a Disneyland theme and a musical theme. So there were chandeliers in there that had like vinyls, like music out vinyl
Yeah.
albums as decorations on them. Some of the lightings looked like a horn, like a brass horn, like a trumpet or trombone horn. It was bright and colorful and it had a ton of seating. When they redid the club, they actually took over some space from some other rooms that were in that hallway to
Okay.
make the club larger to accommodate more people. So
Yeah.
even when it was its busiest, we were still able to get seating there, which was really nice.
That's great. I did see some photos, from somebody that was traveling with you who was also staying club level, and I was
Mhm.
very impressed with the lounge and how it looked. It was pretty, and I did notice that there seemed to be a lot of seating, a lot of booth seating too, which,
Uh-huh.
I think is fantastic, especially as a parent to smaller children. I like sitting in booths because I can put them on one end and keep them from getting out, so
They're trapped, huh?
that's usually my
Okay, that's an
preference is
interesting
for
take on
seating.
it. I hadn't thought of it like that. But yes, and down at the end of the room, they did have a couch with some more comfortable seating and chairs around down there, and even a TV. So the World Cup was on pretty much all the time when we were there. It was a busy week for that. So that was neat to see and kind of keep up with, even though we're not really big soccer fans. It was trendy at the time. So we were
Right,
keeping an
right.
eye out,
Yeah,
of
of course,
course.
everybody was, right? Yeah.
So I guess before I get into too much more of it, I'll just tell you a little bit about the club lounge itself and what it included. It had breakfast every day starting at 6:30 that ran until I think 10 o'clock. And there was always oatmeal with all the fixins you may want for that. There was always some type of hard boiled or deviled egg. There was a truffle one day, avocado one day, a variety of things. You had all types of fruits out and available and pastries, as well as bagels and toast and a,
Mhm.
a toaster out there for you to be able to fix things on your own. So you could absolutely make a full breakfast out of it. Definitely wasn't the most impressive club level of Disney's that I've seen. I've seen some that even have Mickey waffles, the Grand Floridian, our experience there, we had Mickey waffles. A lot of them will have like a mini quiche or some type of scrambled egg or hot item like that. We did not experience that at the Disneyland Hotel. Another thing I noticed was that the breakfast was identical every single day,
Okay.
which was interesting to me because it does vary. I have stayed at all of the club levels at Walt Disney World, other than Coronado Springs, multiple times. So I'm pretty familiar with what they serve. And typically they'll have like a 4-day rotation, especially for their dinners, that it will change every day. And then on day 5, you're back to day 1 again. So then you're having a variety. I don't know if it doesn't change as often out of Disneyland because typically people don't stay there as long. A lot of times a Disneyland vacation is part of a broader California trip and
Uh,
people may just be there a couple days, so maybe it doesn't matter as much. By the end of the week, we were kind of getting sick of what the offerings were
yeah,
for
I get that.
breakfast,
I
but
get it.
we did, of course, have the option to go down to the quick service restaurant there. We could have done that. It just wasn't really necessary. Another
Yeah.
day or two, I may have been finding myself ordering some Mickey waffles and bacon because I kind of was wanting that, but it wasn't necessary. They did have some hot options at lunch, which is actually a different thing from Walt Disney World. A lot of times at Walt Disney World, we did not have hot options at lunch. We had small, they weren't really chicken tenders, but they were bigger than chicken nuggets. I guess we'll call them chicken chunks. I don't know.
Okay.
One day, for a couple days, they had like fried corn. I guess you could call them fritters. I'm not sure what they were. I did not eat them because I can't eat corn.
Right.
I think we had those 2 or 3 days in a row, so that wasn't super exciting for me, but they did have a lot of different charcuterie items there at lunch and at dinner time. Different chips, homemade, like house-made chips there and tortilla chips, different dips and things out, fruits all day long. Uncrustables are certainly standard there, grape and strawberry, so you could always get
Yeah.
those as an
Have a
option.
variety.
So we were able to make meals out of what they had there. They had beef Wellington the
Oh,
one night
wow.
there, so it was all kinds of different things for lunch and dinner, but just not changing as frequently as we had hoped they would. But
Yeah.
overall, we had an incredible experience there. I do highly recommend it, especially if you are able to find it at a discounted rate that they offer, because it is pretty pricey. But again, this was a big trip for us, something we
Yeah.
planned for a long time and something we don't plan on repeating anytime soon. So once we had a little snack and refreshed there, our room was still not ready. Of course, like I said, we arrived early, 10:30 in the
Mhm.
morning. The cast member there told us she put a rush on our room and it should be available soon, but unfortunately, housekeeping did not actually have the ability to rush it. It was about just before 3 minutes before
Oh,
3 o'clock
wow.
by the time our room was ready. So we ended up having a lot of time to kill. So we went to downtown Disney, which, if you're not familiar with Disneyland, is super, super close. When we
Mm.
looked out the windows of this club we were in, we were looking right down into downtown Disney. It is literally across the street from where we were. So they do have a security check there, which is very handy because you do the one security check to get into downtown Disney, and then you're covered through the whole downtown Disney area, Disneyland Park, and Disney's California Adventure. It's just one security required. So that was a big time saver, especially with park hopping.
Yeah.
Once we got into the week, we did love that. So we went through security.
Right across from each other. Wow, that would
Right.
kind of be a nightmare if you had to go to
If you
bed.
had to go through security, right? So I think
Yeah.
that was really well planned. So one thing I hate to do on vacations is compare my current vacation to other things. But one thing I always do on vacations is compare it to other
Of
vacations
course.
I've
Of course.
experienced because
Yeah.
how could I not? It's what I do. And naturally, my daughters are kind of the same way. So we found ourselves comparing a lot of Disneyland to Walt Disney World because, of course,
Mhm.
they've been to Walt Disney World many times, are very well versed in how things work there, and are familiar with the layout of things. There were a ton of things that they loved more at Disneyland than they did at Disney World, which I absolutely loved because it was worth the trip for us, of course,
Yeah.
and the time and money we invested into it. Their security is not one of those things. So Disney World's security has been updated that you could walk through and they pull a few people to have their bags checked. At Disneyland, every single bag still gets checked. Now, you don't
Okay.
have nearly as many people moving through at the same time, and you have multiple checkpoints going in there. So it wasn't terrible. It was no more than just a couple minute wait each time. But it definitely was a longer process
Yeah.
because you had to put your phone in a little bowl and have them move that across and then unzipper your bags. And of course, we have bags with a million zippers because that's what we have. And it just took a little bit of time. So I would give Disney World the win for their security system, but I would give Disneyland the win for actual park access. And I'll get into that in just a
Okay.
little bit when we talk about how you get into the park there. So we shopped around. And full confession, I think on a recent episode we had talked about the new colored line of merch.
Yes, we did.
And I think I may have been a little unkind with my review of that after seeing it online because it's just the same stuff in different colors and it seemed kind of lame. We got suckered right into that. I almost bought, like, a ridiculous amount of stuff because it looked really fun, and the colors seemed so vibrant and different in person than what you normally see. So that was something we kind of checked out the first day, kept our eye on the whole time, and then made some purchases right before we left on our last day. So my apologies to the designers of that color, like, the colorful merch line. We ended up really liking that. So, and I think they have pretty much the same at Disney World as they do at Disneyland. Of course, it just has each respective location on it rather than, it doesn't just say Disney, it said Disneyland
Right.
on it. So,
So, what colors were you and the girls drawn to?
so Annie loved the blue, which I
Okay.
thought is
I
what
thought it
I
was a
would
pretty
love.
color. Looks like
Yes,
a
it
pretty
was
color.
a pretty shade of blue, and blue is her favorite color. She's like the blue kid. Everything she gets is blue. I really like the green. And I think the
Isn't that the one
reason
you criticized the most before?
Eh, I don't know, maybe. I would say prove it, but you can go back and
Yeah.
prove it pretty easily. I don't know why I was so drawn to it. When I was a kid, green was my favorite color. I only family vacation to Disney as a child was when I was 7 years old, and we visited Disneyland for a day when visiting my uncle who was stationed out there with the Marine Corps. And one of my souvenirs from that trip, I got a few things. I got an autograph book, which I was so clueless. Like I didn't know what it was for. And I went
Yeah.
around having family sign my book because I didn't know you were supposed to have characters sign it. We were
Yeah.
there for a day. You didn't know these things. There wasn't the internet. I had no clue what was going on. So and it ended up being one of my favorite things and one of my most treasured souvenirs ever, I think, because when we were on that trip, we met a lot of friends of my aunt and uncles that they knew through his military service. So I have their signatures and they wrote cute little notes to me in it at the time. So it ended up being, I think, way more cool than only having Eeyore sign it. I think that might
Right.
have been my only
Yeah.
actual character signature. But there were two other things that I remember getting on that trip. One was a pen that had water, like liquid in half of it, that the Mark Twain boat, which is still there, like floated back and forth.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I did see they had some retro pens there in the one shop behind the castle in Disneyland, but they were the fairies from Sleeping Beauty. It was Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather. If it had been that Mark Twain boat, I would have been buying all of them probably and giving them out as gifts to friends. But
Yeah.
and then the other thing was a green sun visor, but it and it was the same color green, which is my point here, and it said Disneyland on it, but it was like one of those clear plastic visors that
Oh,
didn't actually block the sun, and I'm sure I don't have it anymore. I saved so many things, and I have an attic full of ridiculous treasures and also mostly trash. But I didn't save this because it had like a wrinkle right down the middle of it, like partially cracked plastic and whatever. I wish I
yeah.
had it. If they had a visor, I would have been all over that too, but they didn't. So I ended up not actually purchasing anything, but the kids did. One thing that I don't get, maybe because you've got little kids. So they had like metal, they look like little metal water bottles. Okay. Every kid out there carries a Stanley or an
Yes. Yeah.
Awala or something like that. Okay. These are tiny. They're like a Disney brand, but they have no sipper, like they have no straw. You just take the lid off and it's like a tiny little canteen almost. But
Okay.
it
Yeah.
but it's so small.
Oh,
I don't even know what you would use it for other than if it was just for a very small child to take like a snack, like some yogurt or some fruit or something. But it's a little deeper than like you can't put a hand down inside of it because it's narrow, like a mini water bottle. I don't know how many ounces it was. I think it was like maybe 6 or 8. It was little. I'll have to look into that and get
yeah.
back to you on it about how many ounces they really are. But I think they were $29.99. We all
Whoa.
stood there looking at them and could not figure out what their actual purpose was.
Yeah.
Nobody around us knew what their purpose was. If you guys know, please let me know.
Yeah. That's an
I don't
expensive
get it.
snack carrier.
It is. I don't like you could put some water in there, but it's just a couple shots of water and you
Yeah.
have to take the lid off and just chug from it because there's
No.
no
Yeah.
sippy part of it. So anyway, they had a ton of stuff there. We did a lot of shopping around, went in pretty much every store there was. Then we walked through the Grand Californian because about halfway through downtown Disney is the entrance right into the Grand Californian Hotel. So I figured it was a good time to let the kids get familiar with that hotel
Mhm.
and learn the lay of the land and how everything works there. So we toured around there. Again, beautiful resort. If you're not familiar with it, it is more like Disney's Wilderness Lodge in that it is a big lodge resort as opposed to the Victorian theme of the Grand Floridian out in Walt Disney World. So we had a fun time touring around and we headed back around 3 and luckily our room was ready. So the room was really nice. Had two queen beds and a single fold down couch. So, typical Disney deluxe
Yeah.
resort layout. I've stayed in a variety of different rooms at Disneyland Hotel over the years, and I have noticed like it seems no two are alike. I have had different layouts with like the bathroom, even our friend's room, which was like doors down the hallway, was a slightly different size room. Theirs was noticeably smaller than ours in some areas. So not all rooms are created equal there, but we did
That's
have
true.
a generously sized room. It had double sinks and large counter in the bathroom area. There was a separate door to close off the toilet, which was convenient with as many people as we had. The water pressure was good. It was like full blast rinsing my hair. Heidi had mentioned at one point that hers was kind of just trickling out, but I think one of my kids may have adjusted the setting on it before I used ours, and mine was like full blast almost too much. So
That's nice. That's worth it.
I don't think they actually had a water pressure issue. I think it was just the setting on it itself. So then we ventured out to dinner. We had just a few sit down meals planned for this trip, and the first one was in downtown Disney at Din Tai Fung. Have you ever been to one of them?
No, it was not open the last time that I was there, but I do know how much our friends that traveled with you love that restaurant.
They absolutely do. They went twice that week. We had not budgeted to go there twice, so we just went there the one time, but it was a great starting dinner. We actually had two separate reservations, and when we arrived, we checked in at the same time. They noticed we were together and they said, "Oh, we could seat you together," which was so nice because this is an extremely popular restaurant. And we made reservations ahead of time and made sure to the day that they opened, but there was always a line outside of people waiting to get in. So I thought it was so generous of them to offer to seat us together like that. And we were very fortunate that the timing worked out that we were able to. So we had a great first meal. That day also happened to be Heidi and Jen's birthday. They are not siblings or twins. They are not
No,
related in any way. We all met through one of the travel groups because we love Disney, but they happened to have the same birthday. So it just worked out great that that was the first day of our trip and we were able to celebrate their birthdays there with them. So that was exciting also. They did. So Heidi really loved the dessert there. And I'd been hearing so much about dessert and they're telling me it was like a molten lava cake, which I love. Like I love
yeah,
fudgy, hot, chocolatey things. I know not everybody does. Tammy's probably listening saying, "You gross," because I know she likes chocolate syrup. She doesn't like hot fudge. I love hot fudge more, to each their own. But I thought, okay, well, this sounds really good, but I'm just not really a fan of dumplings. I had the noodles with chicken and they were delicious. And I also had there was ribs for an appetizer, which were really good. But for this dessert, it's a little dumpling with this chocolate inside. And I wasn't prepared for the texture of the dumpling
oh,
itself.
no.
I know there are a million people out there who love dumplings and who are rolling their eyes at me and thinking I'm ridiculous, but I just did not like the chewiness of the dumpling with the
Yeah,
chocolate. So, and they were like, "Oh, you have to take one big bite at once." So I put the whole thing in my mouth.
bad idea.
Some of
Yeah,
it came back out into the napkin because I just wasn't I love the chocolate. I was like, "Can we just break these open and give me that gooey chocolate from the inside? That would be
yeah.
amazing." But we had a fantastic meal there. We were right next to a window and we were able to see out into downtown Disney. They seem to at all hours or all open hours have a DJ there playing music and there were kids out dancing on the lawn and it just was like such a relaxed, chilled family environment, which over the course of the week we noticed was so much different than Walt Disney World. I feel
Okay.
like almost everyone in Walt Disney World is operating in Rambo mode
Yeah.
almost the whole time. Like get from place to place, need to rush here to there, want to be the first in the line. It's not always that way, but it's often that way. We did not experience that at all in Disneyland. Everybody was just having a good time and relaxed. It was more common to have somebody step out of the way and offer for you to go by them than for somebody to try to push in front of you,
Oh,
which
wow,
is
that's great.
so it was really nice. Like the people were really nice there. the guests and the cast members, of course. And I know there's a lot of locals who
Mhm.
visit Disneyland Park. So shout out to California and everyone out there who was so super kind to us because it was great. We had a really great experience. So we went back at that point. We were pretty tired. It was a long day and we needed to get some rest because
Yeah.
we wanted to hit the ground running the next morning, which we did. We rope dropped, or I guess you could say gate dropped. We were the second person in line at the gate. Now, we weren't the second people there because like the gate's pretty long, so there were people lined up, but in the spot where we were just the second person back like to scan and go into the park our first morning. So, we got there plenty early. I think we made it there to the gate at 7:05. We had gotten up and had a quick breakfast at the club lounge because they opened at 6:30, and we walked in there, and the walk took us much less time than I had anticipated. So we were there at 7:05 a.m. They actually opened the gates just before 7:30, which was nice. Now they don't have early entry out there anymore like they do at Walt Disney World and like they used to out there.
Yeah. That's a pretty recent change too.
It
They had
is.
that until about a year.
I don't know if I like it or not, but it wasn't an issue for us. We did not have issues with the crowds at all the week that we were there. I think that we hit it just right because it was following the 4th of July holiday. So those crowds had kind of cleared out by then. And it was prior to a big, I know they have some ticket sales going on out in California for Disneyland this summer, and it was before those dates started. So we
Okay.
just happened to hit that sweet spot. So I don't know if that's an annual thing or not, but it's something that I'll know to keep an eye on next time
Yeah.
because I think it really did make a difference in crowds. So they used to have an early entry option. Now they don't. Now, if you're staying at a Disneyland Resort hotel, one of their 3 hotels, you get one free lightning lane. Now, this is for your whole stay, not for every day.
Okay.
So when I had first heard it, I thought it was every day, but it wasn't. It's just once for your stay, which doesn't sound a lot, except for we ended up, I don't want to say struggling to use it, but we had to intentionally use it the last day because we got to our day 4 and we still hadn't used that lightning lane.
Wow. That's amazing.
I yeah, it's kind of crazy because we did everything we wanted to do and all the big rides. So they let you in the park just before 7:30, even though the opening wasn't until 8 o'clock. And just like at Disney World, they do their rope drop within the opening of each land. So I had let my kids choose what they wanted their first Disneyland ride to be. And they both wanted it to be Pirates of the Caribbean. So we were rope dropping Adventureland. And right at 8 o'clock, or, on the dot, they dropped the rope and let everybody in. So one issue that I had there was, you know, it's similar to Walt Disney World. And I know that so well. I was often getting confused and turned around.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because things are, not exactly where you think they would be. It's laid out different enough. And again, with California Adventure, it's very similar to Hollywood Studios, but way different also.
Right.
So it took
Right.
getting used to. And I feel very confident now that I know the lay of the land. Like I can go now, no problem. But before that, I was a little confused. So heading in there, I'm like, I think I know where Pirates is. Follow me. We'll go right there. And I did know where it was, but there's like a ramp that goes up above the entrance, and like a goofball, I went up and over that ramp. So like I overshot it, went the wrong way, had to go back, get to the entrance, and they say, "Sorry, we're not open yet. We're down
Oh,
right
no.
now. Try something else and come back in a while." And I'm thinking, oh no, this is like yesterday's TSA line all over again because, we chose the wrong thing. And if you miss those first moments, you're so far back in the line that you may as well have not even rope dropped. Now we've wasted all this time.
Yeah.
So the next ride over was the Haunted Mansion. And again, there was no line there, but it was open. So that was exciting. In fact, it ended up being a little bit too quick of a ride because this was one my kids really were looking forward to doing because, again, the same but different than it is down in
Mhm.
Orlando. In Orlando, you walk around to the back of this big mansion and through some garden paths and in a back door. Out at Disneyland, you're walking right in the front door of this
Yeah.
mansion. You get to go up the front steps. And we went in there so quickly, the kids kind of missed that experience. I was saying, take it slow, but they didn't want to go too slow because there were some people behind us trying to just take it all in. They ended up going back and riding it a few more times later in the week so that they got the opportunity to take it all in. But I ended up being very happy that the Haunted Mansion was our first ride there at Disneyland. I've mentioned before, my Gracie is named after the mansion itself, Gracie
Uh-huh.
Mansion, Master Gracie. There is a tombstone. She did go back there and wait in the regular queue at one point so that she can get her photo with that because that's
Oh,
a
fun.
somewhat morbid tradition that we have had. Every Disney trip, we
Well,
make it a point to get a photo with her in the Magic Kingdom by the Master Gracie tombstone because her name is spelled EY like it is on the tombstone. So just a silly little tidbit there. But anyway, so we got off of that and checked the app because, of course, the wait times are all listed in the app. Pirates still wasn't open. Next ride over was Tiana's. Famous
okay.
last words: "We won't get too wet, right?
Oh, yeah, of
We're
course.
fine to ride this first thing in the morning. Why is there no ride for this?" So again, same but different as Disney
Yeah.
World. The noticeable thing to us was the logs are different. At Disney World, you sit side by side next to somebody else and you have a lap bar. Out at Disneyland, it's a single row. It's you
Mhm.
and somebody behind you, somebody behind them. I think 5 or 6 people sit in it. I know all 5 of us rode in the one that we were in. No lap bars there. We pretty much immediately took on some water. It just poured right over. And I had decided against what I normally do. I wore sneakers to the park that day because I figured I'd be doing a lot of walking and going back and forth to the hotel. I better wear my sneakers instead of my flip flops. And I had a shoe full of water. I could hear the water sloshing around in my shoe. So we were soaked. We were all soaked on Tiana's by like 8:15 in the morning. So
Oh,
that's
wow. Oh,
but we didn't
goodness.
mind. We didn't mind. It was warm out. It was warm enough that we weren't cold, at least from it.
Okay, that's
So,
good.
right
Wow.
next to that is a super adorable Winnie the Pooh ride. So we
Yes.
hopped right on there and did that and really enjoyed that a lot. And then
And
we
that's
finally
another one that if you're familiar with Walt Disney World, it will really throw you off where that one is located because it is not in Fantasyland at all. So don't go look for the Winnie the Pooh attraction at Disneyland in
in the
Fantasyland.
wrong
You will
land.
not find it. Yeah.
It did seem appropriately situated in my mind, though,
Mhm.
because we had the Winnie the Pooh play area there in Magic Kingdom next to Splash Mountain for so many years. I don't even know if that's still there, but it was there when my kids were little. So it kind of made sense for Winnie the Pooh to be right next to Tiana's. So by then, Pirates was finally open. And of course, the line looked really long. And we got there and we got in the line, and the cast member says to us, there's 2 lines open here. And I thought, I fell for that yesterday with TSA. I'm not going to
Yeah.
fall. And she was saying, no, you can go ahead. That one's open. And I look over and I'm looking at this winding queue and there's absolutely nobody in it. And the people behind us are like shrugging their shoulders. I said, well, let's give it a try because I thought it was a lightning lane line or something because it was so short. So we went in there and we zigzagged around and I swear we must have gone by 500 people. Like we walked all the way in and waited about 5 people to get on the ride. So
Wow.
that right there saved us a ton of time. That they told us to do it. They just nobody was listening to them and using the second side of the queue. So rather than being out the front entrance of the ride, we just walked right onto it, and that worked out.
That's nice.
That worked out super well.
I
So
missed out about a lot of the queues before, Lightning Lane well, before that even Fast Pass became a thing where you did have the split queue and,
mhm.
people have a tendency to just follow the person in front of them,
Right.
and if you knew where that line split off, sometimes you could get really lucky and get in a much shorter line because people were just
Right.
following along with the rest of the crowd.
Right, but this was right at the entrance, like, where you first
Wow.
walk into the ride, it was split, and nobody was splitting, nobody was listening to the cast member, so thank you for that cast member because
Yeah.
she saved us a ton of time. I felt completely redeemed from our airport wait the day before. We were totally winning this morning because at that point, it was let me check my photos here. It was 9:30 AM, and we had already done 4 rides, and we're heading over to the castle to take some photos at that point,
Wow.
so I and I forgot to mention, when we were being held at the rope at Adventureland waiting for the rope to drop, it occurred to me after about 15 minutes standing there, oh no, I was supposed to buy Lightning Lane as soon as I walked in
Mm.
because at Disneyland, you purchase it the day of when you're in the park. You don't buy it ahead of time. You don't reserve rides ahead of time. You do it that day. And
Unless you buy it as part of your package, then you could do that
right.
then, but,
You could
um,
purchase it, but
yeah.
you still don't choose your rides
Yes.
until you're in the park. So, and the ride option I was feeling like, oh, I need to book something now so we can get the popular rides at the end of the day. It really wasn't necessary at all. The times were, 10 minutes from now or
Wow. Yeah.
even more immediate than that. Like you can go right now to get on it. So we did start using Lightning Lane. We used it, I think we used it for Indiana Jones. I'm honestly not even sure because we ended up needing it so little that it didn't even really matter. I had hoped that we'd be able to get away with just purchasing it 2 days, and we ended up just purchasing that first day and not needing it again because we got so
Wow.
much done.
That's
So
wonderful.
we visited over by the castle a little bit and took some photos because, of course, the castle's a big deal. And again, very different than at
Mm.
Walt Disney World. It's a lot smaller.
Yeah, how did your girls react to that?
So I mean, they knew.
Yeah.
But they still absolutely loved it and appreciated it for what it
Mhm.
was. They wore outfits accordingly, so they matched the castle. They planned these things out. It's all the important things. So they loved it. I had warned them ahead of time. Don't you dare walk down that street and say it's so small because that is just so rude and tacky. Everybody knows it's small. So they knew. They knew going into it it was going to be a smaller castle, but they also appreciate the fact of what this park was, what the park started, what it meant, what Walt's dream was. So that's what was more important to them than the
Yeah.
castle itself. That being said, Cinderella Castle in Florida, now that it is back to its rightful color, is their go to castle for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
so they wanted to do the Matterhorn, which I did not want to do. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's what we used the lightning lane for was they
Okay.
hopped on Matterhorn. So they did that. They got off it, said it was terrible. It jerked them
Oh,
around all over the place. And, and Annie got afraid of the Yeti. I guess she wasn't expecting that. She hates Expedition Everest. So
okay.
seeing the Yeti and this startled her. I don't think she realized it was there. So
That's funny.
they did ride it at least another time, possibly 2 more times over the week, so they didn't really hate it, but they were a little bit dramatic about it. Then we rode Buzz Lightyear, the Buzz Lightyear ride, so
Okay.
that was super cute, and gosh, I don't know when we did Indiana Jones. I guess I don't have Indiana Jones photos, but we must have done that before we went to the castle. I'm telling you, we got through so much stuff that morning, it was
That's
unbelievable.
amazing.
Rope dropping made such a difference, and I was watching wait times, 10 o'clock, keeping an eye on, expecting to see that jump. Because there's usually that time frame that if you don't get there by a certain time, you've missed your rope drop opportunity
Yeah.
and you're kind of like I thought I missed it instantly after the first ride we went to wasn't open, but that wasn't the case at all out there. It went just so smoothly. So yeah, we loved Indiana Jones. That was a lot of fun also. We did Small World. They really wanted to see Small World, which
Okay.
again, same but different
It is.
as what we're used to.
Yeah. I
And they
like their
loved that.
version of it. It's my favorite version.
The ride in the park that seemed to have the longest waits every time I looked was the Roger Rabbit ride. So I know this ride is going to be closing soon. It was, I believe, already scheduled to close, but then that got extended a little bit. So it was still open when we are there, which Avery was thrilled about because when he heard there was a Roger Rabbit ride, he loves Roger Rabbit. He used to watch it as a kid and he was
Uh-huh.
super excited for it. And then we're like,
That's
oh no, it's
funny.
closing. But it didn't close yet. So we got to ride it. I'll just say there's some pretty bizarre rides out there. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
especially in the Fantasy and Toontown area. But we rode Roger Rabbit. It was a lot of fun, very different. And then right next to that is Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway,
Okay.
which I believe the ride itself is identical to in Hollywood Studios in Orlando, but the queue is different. So my kids wanted to ride the ride so that they can go through the queue because there's some different memorabilia and stuff there that was interesting for them to see. They actually have the Mouseketeer. Do you know what the Mouseketeer is from Mickey Mouse Clubhouse? What
Well, of
Mouse?
course
Hey,
I
Mouse,
do.
hi, Mouse.
So when
Okay,
you said that, yeah, of course I do.
yeah, that's what it is. It's there, and we were so excited to get photos in front of that. It was like just something you kind of wrapped around in the queue, which was really cute. So it was fun, and it was all Mickey and Minnie related things. Of course, you have the Chinese theater when you're at Walt Disney World, and
Mhm.
that's special too. But this was a different experience, and we really enjoyed that. By this time, it was I think noon or possibly closer to around 1 o'clock, I guess. And the kids were getting a little hungry. So I said, well, why don't we grab some popcorn to snack on? And then we can head back to the hotel via the monorail, which was super close to us. And that is
Okay.
one of my favorite things about the property there if you're considering pros and cons and trying to choose where to visit. The monorail goes from very close to the Disneyland Hotel, just inside of downtown Disney, and it's a round trip stopping at Tomorrowland. There's a station in Tomorrowland inside Disneyland Park. So when you are entering in downtown Disney, you scan to get onto the monorail so that they know you have your park ticket for Disneyland. And then it just makes it so quick. You're just skipping the whole walk, like back to Main Street and down Main Street and through all of downtown Disney. You're shortcutting that. It's like a bypass. So the kids were excited to ride the monorail anyway, and we were extra excited to be able to get back to the hotel a little bit quicker. The view is very unique from the monorail station
Mhm.
because it is right there at the Nemo submarine voyage, which was formerly 20,000 leagues under the sea and has been filled in at Disney World. So this was a huge difference
Yeah.
when looking at the comparison. We did ride that later in the week. We didn't at the time, but it just looks so pretty there. And what an interesting ride. I'll get
Yes.
into
Yeah,
that
it is.
when we get to the point that we actually did that. But we took the monorail back to the hotel. We went swimming. They have some beautiful pools, huge pools there at the Disneyland Hotel. So we swam. We went in the hot tub for a little while. Until about 7 o'clock that night, we relaxed and we needed that. We took some naps. We were all very tired. One of the main things that I think is absolutely fantastic about Disneyland is they still have their late park hours. These are regular park hours for all guests that you don't have to buy a special party ticket or an after hours event ticket and fork over another 150, 200. These are just regular park hours. Every day we were there, Disneyland Park was open from 8 a.m. until midnight. And
Wow.
we took advantage of that and I loved it. And
Yeah.
it was almost nostalgic for me because when our girls were little, that's how it worked at Walt Disney
Mhm.
World. You didn't have to fork over extra money to be able to enjoy late night at the parks on a regular basis, even in the wintertime. So we love being able to do this. So it was about 7 o'clock we went back. One of the main things we wanted to see was the Walt Disney animatronic that's in the theater with the
Okay.
show about Walt's life. So we did that first thing when we entered. So we did not take the monorail back. We chose to walk through downtown Disney, enjoy the walk through. It had really come to life at that point. You know, when you get to the evening hours, the lights are on. There's a lot of people dining at the restaurants, tons of outdoor seating there at different restaurants. So it was just, again, such a laid back experience, a million times different than what I experienced at Disney Springs in the heat with the chaos of the people shoving around and trying to get from place to place in Disney Springs. So if we're taking a vote on that, I'm picking downtown Disney out of
Yeah.
Disneyland every day.
Yes. Yeah.
We headed to Space Mountain next. We did make a lightning lane earlier in the day to go back to Space Mountain that night. The kids got in line and then quickly texted us to say the ride was down, but what do we do? Do we stick it out or do we get out of the line? I said, well, just give it a couple minutes because we had experience. Oh, no, we didn't experience that yet. I said, sometimes you get in a line and they tell you it's down and everybody gets out of the line and you get to move up. So just give it a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Within 5 minutes or so, it was open. They rode that. We stopped and grabbed some churros. And our plan for that night was to do all of the, I'm calling them silly little rides in Fantasyland, the cute
Mhm.
rides like Mr.
Yeah.
Toad's and Snow White. We had not realized ahead of time that those rides all closed during the fireworks. I just didn't think about it. So they were closing, I can't remember if it was 8 or 8:30 they closed up until 10:15 or 10:30 each night. So we were back in the park to do them right at the time they were closing. So I thought, well, what do we do now? Because we had pretty much done most things we wanted to in that park that were still open. And I thought, hey, let's hop across to California Adventure and use our lightning lane over there
Okay.
because you can park hop with the lightning lane. So while we were still sitting in Disneyland, I was able to make a lightning lane reservation to ride Soarin' that night.
Oh, that's
California
good.
Adventure, yeah, they were open until 10 o'clock and it
Okay.
was about, I would say about 8:30 at this point, probably. So we hopped on over there. We went to Web Slingers first to check out that line,
Mhm.
because it had said it was 25 minutes. Got in the line, same thing again. The ride's down for a couple
Oh,
minutes.
no.
Like, what do we do? Well, we decided it worked on the previous ride, so let's just stick it out a bit. And I'm so glad we did because everyone else did the opposite. We moved way, way up. Everybody's getting out of the line, getting out of the line. We moved way up and were able to ride in about 15 minutes, I think it took by the time they had it up and running and we walked into the pre-show. So again, we're doing all these rides this first day. We used the lightning lane for Soarin' we had scheduled, and we were able to just walk onto this, during a pretty busy time of night. Now, it was probably pretty close to World of Color time, so there were probably a lot of people at that. That probably took some people away. But we
Mhm.
did that, and then we went over and did the Monsters Inc. ride, which is super cute, which
Yeah.
also will be closing soon, but has not closed yet. So that was a priority for us because we wanted to see that. And then we headed over to Soarin' with our lightning lane there, and we boarded that like right at 10 o'clock, which was the park closing time. So
Wow.
we were thrilled to see Soarin' across America.
Right.
We got a heck of a lot done between when we went back to the park at 7 p.m. and at 10 o'clock, but we decided let's not be crazy and go back to Disneyland tonight. Let's go back to the hotel. That's enough for our first full day there
Yes.
in the parks. So the next day we ended up again breakfast in the club lounge. We slept in a bit that day. I said I don't really think rope drop is necessary. All day the day before I had been keeping an eye on wait times in both parks and it just wasn't bad. And I said let's get there and let's see what the line for Guardians Mission Breakout is. So Mission Breakout out at Disneyland is their former Tower of Terror, which has been rethemed. It's a super fun ride. I've been on it before. The kids really wanted to do it. It is not the same roller coaster as Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic
Mhm.
Rewind in Epcot. This is a totally different Guardians ride. We got there at around quarter of 10. So not rope dropping by any means,
No.
but
Yeah.
still, they were on the ride, I would say, well, I could look at my photos here. So we arrived at 9:42
Okay.
and by 9:55 we were on the Little Mermaid ride. So
Wow.
no, we must have taken that out. You know what? I must have lied. We must have taken that picture as soon as they got off the ride because that just doesn't make sense. So I think we got there at 9:30 and at 9:32 they were already finishing coming. It
That's
was or
crazy.
42.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was like no wait still at
Yeah.
that time of the day, which was fantastic. They didn't wait long at all. So we did that. We walked around a bit. We went to the Little Mermaid ride. Now, I was not familiar with the Pixar Pier area of the park very much. I've been there to eat at Lamplight Lounge before. I've seen
Mhm.
World of Color, but I did Incredicoaster back when it was California Screamin'. So
Yeah.
it had been a while since I experienced a lot. So I honestly wasn't really sure what was in all of this area. So I said, Little Mermaid, is that like the show? And in my head, it was the show because that's what's at Hollywood Studios, which I thought was the comparable park, ended up being a ride, but we did it anyway.
Yeah.
we, we
Well, and
took a walk around.
the signage is different too because when you think about the Walt Disney World where you have the ship and you have Ariel in the front of the ship and
Right,
everything like that, and you don't have that. It's more like the signage is more like the show signage. So yes, I can
right.
understand
Yeah.
that.
I was just a little confused. So we walked around the whole pier area, which was nice, but it was pretty hot. The kids honestly weren't that big of a fan of it. They were like, oh, that was hot and like carnival-y. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that's what it's supposed to be. I said, "We'll come
Mhm.
back at night and you'll like it way more at nighttime, I think." So we did purchase a single pass lightning lane that day for Radiator Springs because that was a
Okay.
must do. That did have, I think, the longest wait times of anything in that park very consistently. So we decided let's just buy that and not have to worry about making time to stand in that line. So we rode Radiator Springs Racers. Our car won, so that was amazing.
Nice.
I've been on it maybe 4 or 5 other times, and I've always lost, I feel.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm always a loser. And then we decided we walked through the different shops there to check everything out because it's such a cute area. The kids didn't
It
really
really is.
they were worried they'd get dizzy on, what is it, Luigi's, and they didn't really wanna go on Mater either. So we
Yeah.
ended up deciding to just go ahead and grab lunch at Flo's V8 Cafe. So we mobile ordered there. We didn't have any trouble finding seating. They have, seating off to both sides of the restaurant, but if you walk in and go to the right, that's where there's a lot more seating. So we kinda got a variety of food there. They had some chicken tenders. I think mine were teriyaki sauce on them. They had
Okay.
plain ones. They had chicken and waffles there. They have a cheeseburger that they serve on a plate that's covered in like gooey orange cheese, like that with plasticky cheese. It's
Yeah.
like slopped right in it. So we got all kinds of things there and sat in the air conditioning for a while, cooled down, had some water because it was pretty warm. It wasn't
Okay.
unbearable. You didn't have the humidity. It was beautiful weather, but it you get hot standing
Yeah.
outside. And we had all forgot to put on sunscreen. So that was excellent too. So then we headed over to the Animation Academy, which again, I wasn't really sure what was inside this building, but I knew there was an Animation Academy drawing experience. I wanted to do that. It was super cute how they had the building set up. It's also where they have Turtle Talk with Crush, and
Hmm.
there was an Anna and Elsa meet and greet in there, or some kind of Frozen meet and greet. We didn't go into it, but we did a really fun drawing, which is just so amazing to me that they circle so many people through there. I mean, I think it was every half hour they were running those shows and it was something different each time. We drew Perry the Platypus from Phineas and
Okay.
Ferb.
Yeah.
Mine looked pretty horrendous. I do have a
Yeah.
photo I can show you, but I am no artist. And shout out to the artist who was showing us what to do because he really did do a great job, but it just was not getting through to my pencil and paper. But it was a lot of fun. And they did tell us right at the end what the next drawing was going to be. So if you wanted to circle around and go out and hop in the queue again and come back in, you were able to do that. The next one they were going to do was Forky. So I thought that sounded pretty cute too.
Yeah.
So after that, we decided we were ready to go back to the hotel, but before we went back, we wanted to do Grizzly River Run.
Okay.
So we were smarter than we were the day before when we hopped right on Tiana's and got soaked first thing in the day. We saved Grizzly River Run for our last ride. So we waited in that line. It was about 20 or 25 minutes, but that seemed totally reasonable to me. It definitely was not worth purchasing. I mean, Lightning Lane was $37.
Wow. Yeah.
So when you have 4 people in your party, that's a big deal, and I was willing to
Yeah.
do it the first day, but after how successful we were with getting on all the rides and being able to enjoy everything, it just wasn't necessary. So it was worth the 20 to 25-minute wait for us. It was undercover, so we weren't out in the blazing sun. We rode and got pretty wet, but not as wet as we did on Tiana's the day before.
Yeah, and I think that's a fun I think that's a fun ride there. It's different than Cali River Rapids at
Way
Animal
better.
Kingdom.
I think
Yeah,
it's way
so
better than Cali River
yes, I
Rapids.
think so too. I think it's a way better ride, but yeah, it's amazing that they have so much that much space for it because they use up every little inch of space between
Yes,
both
they
the
do.
parks that they can find, but, I like that area of the park a lot.
So at this point, we're deciding, okay, probably almost time to head back to the hotel. Let's stop and grab an ice cream at Clarabelle's. So we stopped at Clarabelle's to get some ice cream. I got the Oswald sundae, which was delicious. It was in like a waffle bowl. It had hot fudge and it had chocolate dipped banana as the ears sticking up.
Oh,
So
cute.
that was really cute. Gracie actually got a whole banana that was dipped and had all kinds of ooey gooey stuff on it that looked really good. So we all got a little bit of a treat there. And then we went back to the hotel and went up to the club lounge to get some drinks and refreshments up there to cool down. So we really, really enjoyed having that club lounge to go to. We were there for a couple hours at the hotel relaxing and then wanted to be back at California Adventure that night because they do just a cute little, I don't want to call it a show, but at sunset each night in Radiator Springs out on the street, they play music and they turn on the lights. And they before it happens, Lightning McQueen comes out and Mater comes out
Yep,
and
I've
goes
seen
down the
that
street,
before,
which is
yeah.
really cute. It is, I think it's so cute. And I don't even know if it's something that they have advertised, if it's even in the app, but it is adorable. And I'm glad we made time to go do it. So we headed back there around 7:30, so we'd have plenty of time. That was at 8:05. Now, of course, the time is going to vary for what time they do the lights because the sun sets at different times. But it was super cute. We caught it that night, and then we headed to the World of Color dessert party. So we did experience the World of Color party. It was fantastic, but we're actually going to save that for another episode because
Yes.
next week's episode, we have that and then one other special experience we're going to be separating out for its own episode. So after that, we went back to the hotel and we got to bed because, again, we've been busy, even though we take
Yeah.
afternoon rests. Like we were doing a lot of things. I just feel like we fit in so much. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I am super impressed with how much that y'all got done, and I'm gonna have to keep my eye on this week for travel in the future because I can't wait to get my own kids out to Disneyland someday before too long.
So actually, I just lied. We did not go back to bed. We
Oh,
left. So some of our group went back to bed. Me and the kids, we went back to Disneyland.
okay.
So we hopped over across the Esplanade, I guess you would call it,
Yeah.
because we wanted to do Nemo's submarine voyage in the dark. So we
Okay.
did that. And that is when we rode Mr. Toad's Snow White, the Pinocchio ride, the Alice in Wonderland ride. We did the Storybook Canal boats, all of that stuff that we didn't get to do the day before. We just headed back there this night after World of Color and after the fireworks were done. We got to see the Paint the Night parade, which was super
Oh,
exciting. The second
yeah.
they were doing 2 showings of that. The second one was at 10:45, so that worked out great. And then at that point, it was midnight and we went back to the hotel. So,
Okay, so I have to ask, so you mentioned weird attractions when mentioning Roger Rabbit
yeah.
and everything. So how did the girls feel about Mr. Toads? Because that is a bizarre attraction to me. It absolutely is, but I love it. I absolutely love it, and I miss
It
it
is
at Walt Disney World,
bizarre.
but
We kept just saying, "I can't believe these rides still exist here," and I know there would
yeah.
be an uproar if they didn't. Mr. Toad's is something that I remember riding as a seven-year-old, and now I can see why, because it was slightly horrifying. I
Yeah.
mean, because basically you go to jail and then hell? I mean, is that
Yeah.
what happens? Because
That's
that's what I got.
exactly what happens,
And then
yes,
you're
yeah.
jumped out of the ride, and,
Yep,
like, the rest is up to you, I guess. So
yep.
we were kinda it's funny that I forgot we even did this because as we were experiencing it, we were joking and saying, "What fever dream ride are we gonna go into next?" Because, it's late, we're exhausted, you go into these rides, you're getting whipped all over the place, there's lights going all over. It was there's some pretty crazy rides there. So, I know the
Yeah.
Snow White ride is not called Snow White's Scary Adventures, but, I mean, you still have the evil queen that's trying to take her heart out. Like, everybody knows the
Right,
Snow
right,
White, like,
like
that's a scary story. And and the Pinocchio ride kinda whipped us around enough. I don't even know what was going on in
yeah.
I love that the Alice in Wonderland ride, though, goes out and over the roof of part of
Yes.
the attraction, so that's really cool too. I mean, we absolutely love them all. They were just
Yeah.
such a fun time. I love that they're short rides with short lines, and you can just do one after the other. It's just a good time. It's a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
absolutely.
And it gave us the opportunity with having a larger group to take turns and ride with somebody different, and just and have that experience. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, some of that stuff's a little wacky. So the storybook boats, the canal boats,
The canals, yes, yeah.
like, those are real boats that are out there, and,
Yes.
like, as we were gonna board, the group in front of us was getting out of their boat, and I could hear the cast members say, "Okay, on the count of 3, everyone stand up at the same time," and I was like, "Oh my word, what like, we're gonna dump our boat over."
Yeah,
I'm like, "What if my knee is stiff? What if I can't stand up at the right timing? What if
yeah.
I knock this boat into the ground and I'm the first person ever to tumble over this boat?" Like, then I'm thinking, "Has it happened? Should I look that up?" But I did not. But it was a lot of fun, and we got so much done that night. Again, it was a full day. Even though we slept in some and took our afternoon break, everything is so close that you can just get so much more done than
Yeah.
you can at the Orlando park. So while not having the space may have seemed like a curse at the time because they couldn't complete everything that they wanted to with that space, I think it's also a gift because it just makes it so convenient and so much more of an enjoyable experience.
Yes, and going from park to park, park hopping, if you've never been before, you really just can't believe how close those entrances are. I mean, you're
Mhm.
walking, less than a football field away between both of them, and you're just at one end to the next. And talking about going through their downtown Disney area to get to a park, it's not a long walk and it's not a bad
Mhm.
walk. And I really enjoy it in the mornings. That times that we've been there and we've walked through it in the mornings, it's nice. It's a nice ramp up to the rest of your day, I think.
Yeah. And the way I usually explain it to people who haven't been there before, if you are familiar with Disney World, is if you can picture yourself walking out of the Magic Kingdom. And instead of going through the exit and having the Seven Seas Lagoon in front of you, you have the entrance to another park in front of you.
Yes.
It's right there. Like it's that close. It is so crazy close. It's right there. So, I mean, at one point later in the trip, Annie had wanted to do something in California Adventure that the other kids didn't want to do. And I was back at the hotel and we were able to very quickly get over to her and meet up with her and find her so easily where,
Mhm.
it just wouldn't have been possible at Disney World. So our next day, again, this is a very special day. We had a special experience this day. A super sweet friend of mine who is a member of Club 33 actually made reservations for us at Club 33. So we were able to experience that for lunch the next day. And we are going to do an entire separate trip report in a future episode about my experience at Club 33. So at this morning, we slept in and our reservation was at 11:30. Of course, there's a dress code with Club 33, so I can tell
Mhm.
you all about that in next week's episode. But that is primarily what we did for that morning, and it did take about 3 hours. It was like a 3-hour experience from start
Wow.
to
I
finish. So,
Yeah, I cannot
so
wait to hear about it. I have no idea what the experience is like, and when you told me that this was a possibility, I was, 1, floored and so excited for you, and this is just for many Disney fans, I think this is the ultimate experience that you could just about have. There may be a few more, it ranks probably in top 3 for most Disney fans to be able to experience Club 33.
And it was just so incredibly generous of the member to offer to us to make the reservation. We are so grateful to her. And we had a great time, and it is such a unique experience, not something anyone would typically think of as a theme park experience. So I'm excited to share that all with you next week
Yeah.
also. But so after our Club 33 experience, we went back to the hotel to get changed because we didn't feel like staying in our club clothes for the whole rest of the day. Although Gracie and Avery decided to stay for a while. They thought it would be fun to go on some rides in their dressier clothes. So
Oh,
they did do that, and they purchased some Club 33 merch when we were there, which I can tell you more about next week. But they had people noticing their bags because they do have specific merchandise bags, paper bags that they put Club 33 merch in. And people had noticed them in the queues and asking
I
them about
love
them.
that.
So
That's
they kind
special.
of extended the special experience with that, getting a little bit of attention for that also. And when we rode the monorail back, so we figured it was fastest to just take the monorail. It was less walking to head to the monorail to head back to the hotel. We got in the monorail, and there were two people, one couple in the monorail car with us, and they immediately noticed our merchandise bags and were asking about it as well. So it is something that many people know about, but not all are fortunate enough to be able to experience. And I am just so thrilled that we were able to. So
Yeah.
we went back and we changed and relaxed, and we decided to take a little bit of time to walk over to Disney's Pixar Place Hotel because we hadn't been there yet. So we went and walked around the lobby there so that the kids could see it. And then we went right over to California Adventure using the entrance there directly into the park. And the kids have must do another eating experience was to eat at Pim's Test Kitchen. So this was
Okay.
in addition to Club 33, we ate there. I think the day before the only food we bought was at Clarabelle's, and now this day we ate at Club 33 and then Pim's Test Kitchen. So,
That's funny.
but it did not disappoint. It was super cute. I had been there before and totally agreed that the kids would enjoy it. We got the chicken sandwiches. I got the chicken sandwich. The kids got a couple different things. We got those candy bars. Have you ever had the candy bar there?
No, I've actually never eaten there because, the time before that you're mentioning and I was there, but, I arrived to that park a little bit later than you did, and I ate
Okay.
somewhere else. I think you guys were eating there already
Okay.
when I got in, so I ate somewhere else before meeting up with you.
So they have a candy bar that is giant and is basically like a Snickers, but even better. And I love Snickers. So I really, really love this candy bar. So we ended up getting one of them would have been plenty for the kids and I to share. We got two just so we could have some extra and kind of took a few bites of it over the next few days and shared it with friends. But that was delicious. That was absolutely delicious.
I also can I add too, even though we compared Disney's California Adventure to Hollywood Studios, there is no comparison with the food. Disney's California Adventure has amazing food, and
Yeah, they're the
quick
winner.
service locations. There are so many good locations with such a good variety to have at Disney's California Adventure. They absolutely hands down win when it comes to food.
Absolutely. I agree. 100. And then we happened to just be in Cars Land again for that little 8 o'clock show. So we got to see that again, which was a lot of fun. The kids rode Incredicoaster, and the plan was for them to use our complimentary lightning lane that we received from Disney for staying at a Disney resort hotel. But the line was so short, they did not use it.
Well, there
So
you
we're
go.
still just hanging on to this, just hanging on to it. And then this night, I wanted to get back. I didn't want to hang around in the park too long because one thing I wanted to experience was being able to see the fireworks from the High Key Club. So, as I had
Okay.
mentioned, the High Key Club, the club lounge, is on the 11th floor of the Disneyland Resort Hotel, and it looks out to not only downtown Disney, but into both parks. You could see so much from there. So we wanted to be up there in the lounge and we wanted to get there in enough time that we had good seats by the window to be able to experience the fireworks. So I think this is probably the most crowded time because a lot of people, especially with family, have the kids up there. After their busy days, it's a good way to wind down and end the day if you don't want to be in the park. There are a lot of kiddos in pajamas, so that was really cute. And it was just a really nice experience. So they had desserts there every evening from 8 to 10 p.m. And some different drinks options out. So we did go back there and enjoy that to finish off our night there. So one more day. one more day. We're getting
Wow.
there.
Yeah.
This is our fourth park day, and we entered downtown Disney at about 10 o'clock. Now, I had mentioned how a previous day we went to see the Walt Disney animatronic in the
Mhm.
theater just inside the entrance of Disneyland Park. That Walt Disney show at this time is running each day beginning at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The mornings, we still have great moments with Mr. Lincoln. It's the
Okay.
Lincoln attraction with that animatronic, which was that the original? I can't remember if it was the original animatronic. I know it was a huge deal. It really looks like them and was something that has been in this park for ages. So that show runs each day up until 1:30 in the afternoon. So we wanted to make sure we saw that show, made that a priority that day. So we entered the
And
front
that's
of
a
the
good
park.
show. I have seen that one before. I really enjoyed it.
And some of the things in it are very similar to what you'll see in the American Adventure at
Mhm.
Epcot. We certainly recognize, some of the same history they're sharing, and they use some of the same music, which is beautiful music. It's a pretty touching experience,
Yeah.
and helps you to remember to be thankful for all that we have here. So. After that, we stopped in. There's like a tribute to the Sherman Brothers in the cinema there on Main Street. So we went into that to see that. And then we headed to the Tiki Room. The Tiki Room was a must do for me because it was like my least favorite thing when I was 7. I could still so vividly remember being in there, and it was park closing time, and I was just like a tired, cranky 7-year-old. I was not a super pleasant kid. I remember not being pleasant, so I can't imagine how unpleasant I really must have been. And I could just remember like crying and not wanting to be in there and these birds squawking and whatever. But the Tiki Room in Florida has become one of my favorite things. So this was somewhere I wanted to take the kids. So we made sure to stop in the Tiki Room and check that out, even though it's pretty similar to what it is in Orlando. Then we wanted to do the railroad. The kids wanted to do a full lap on the railroad. We were
Okay.
disappointed when we realized that the dioramas were closed. They
Mm,
have like the dinosaur dioramas there. They
yeah.
were closed. We kind of laughed. So I don't know why they're closed or what they're doing. But, usually when Disney has refurbishments happening, they go out of their way to make things still look,
Yes.
you will have scrims on buildings that look like the actual buildings themselves for a distance, or you'll have like big high walls with like fake grass on them to cover that there's things happening behind. This was seriously covered over with what looked like either like wrapping paper or cardboard, just blacked
Oh,
off. And then they had like stickers, just big stickers of animals on the windows. It
that's
was
fun.
laughable. I'm like, take pictures of this because this is the thing to remember. This silliness is like beyond. So, while the kids were disappointed that they didn't get to see the actual dinosaur diorama, at least they got to experience something memorable. So, we did the entire lap around on the railroad. And when we got off, we were right next to where the Mickey shaped beignets and the mint juleps are. So we made a stop there and we got our Mickey beignets and mint juleps. We ordered it when we were almost finished looping around on the train. We were able to mobile order, and then we just walked right up to the window and picked them up. So I love that. I love mobile order for that reason.
Mhm.
It just makes it so much easier. What do we do? Oh, while we were sitting there, this jazz band just appears and starts playing
Well, there
right
you
in the
go.
middle of this quick service area. And then Princess Tiana just shows up and is
Oh,
mingling with all the guests and their powdery beignets. And she's just like hanging out and dancing, and people were going up and dancing with her. It was really special. And that's something that I noticed happening there, is that there seem to be a lot more characters in the wild, I guess you would
okay.
say. Like at
Yeah.
one point we just saw the Mad Hatter, like roaming around in Fantasyland. Like that kind of thing was pretty common. Of course, they do have scheduled character meet and greets at times, but this was like, were totally unexpected. So
Mhm.
that was something special. We decided to head back. Oh no, we did before we did that, we did the castle walkthrough because we hadn't done that yet. You could actually walk through the castle here. And I don't just mean through the center, like you can't, and you can do that. You can walk through the center,
Yeah.
but you could also go inside a back door of the castle and walk in and through and come out the other side, seeing depictions of the story of Sleeping Beauty. So that is a pretty cool thing also, and something the kids really wanted to do. And then we went back to Toontown to see Mickey and Minnie's houses. These are things that used to be at Disney World, but were eliminated for the new Fantasyland expansion 15 years or so ago. So my kids didn't remember them. I could remember being in there when the kids were tiny, but they did not remember them. So we checked that out. We went in Mickey's. We did not wait for Minnie's because the wait was longer for that, and the kids just weren't that committed to it at that point and wanted to go back to the hotel because something else we hadn't done yet was visit Trader Sam's.
Oh,
So
yes.
we had thought, oh, we'll go back and join the wait list, which we did. We got called and then we got there and realized our seating that they had for us was outside and we really
Hmm.
preferred to be on the inside. So we rejoined the wait list. Trader Sam's is right next to the tower that we were in. So we just headed back up to the club lounge and comfortably waited there until we got the text message to tell us they were ready to seat us. There were seven of us at that point. So they seated us. Oh, no, eight of us. There were eight of us at that point. So they seated us at two tables of four. We're pretty close together, which was nice. And it's always a fun interactive experience. I don't think it was quite as fun as I remember it being. I feel like, I don't know if people just weren't ordering things that had any interaction or if they do less than they used to. So it was fun, but not really something that I feel I would have to do on a future trip there. Have you ever been to the one out there?
I have, but it was my husband and I, and we sat outside and, we used it as kind of a little date night thing the last time that
Yeah.
we were out at Disneyland as a family. My oldest 2 middle child, she was only 4 months old, and so the grandparents watched them for about an hour and a half while we just went out to try Trader Sam's, and it was gonna be a long wait to get inside, so we just said, "Hey," they could get us outside immediately, so we just said, "Okay, we'll just do that." We just want to kind of enjoy the ambiance, and it was very nice sitting out there, even though we
Yeah.
didn't get the full experience, we still had a good time.
So, one issue that we had at the hotel was with housekeeping, and I think it was due to a miscommunication. So, when we first got there and we were getting our room, I did mention to the concierge host up in the lounge that we would like to have additional towels. I had said to her at the time, we don't need a special delivery of towels, but when they service our room each day, if we could please have some extra towels, that would be great because four of us have longer hair and
Yeah.
we like to have a hair towel. I know many of you out there listening probably understand what I mean.
Yes.
And, we would be showering kind of at different times of days depending on what we had going on. Our schedules were a little off. So we wanted to make sure we had towels. And it absolutely became comical because at one point they delivered towels at 12:04 a.m. just after midnight, even though the do not disturb sign was on the door. Now, we were up late anyway. So we happened to have just gotten there to our room a few minutes before. I thought it was actually our friends knocking on the door for something. I went and opened it and I was absolutely stunned when it was housekeeping saying, you asked for towels. Every time it was 9 towels because that's how many total I said I wanted because we had four of us that needed two and one who needed one. So I had said if we could get 9 towels every day. So there were two times they came to the door and knocked when the do not disturb sign was on, under the impression that I had just requested these towels. And of course, we just always took them and said, okay, thank you so much. But
Yeah.
I
Wow.
it finally got to the point that I went up to the lounge and I was like, I'm really sorry. I'm not complaining, but like they stopped servicing our room. They were just bringing us towels. And for 3 days, they didn't come and make up the room. Now, with the club level option, you're supposed to have the morning makeup and then turn down service if you'd like it. And they did come and turn down our room that first day, but then they didn't come back. So
Oh,
I
well.
went and said, like, I don't want to complain, but we have a little bit of time now. We're not going to be in our room. And our room has not been made up in days. It was to the point that I had the trash can in the middle of the floor we had like paper bags from mobile orders and stuff I was putting all the trash in. And they had brought towels in and set towels on the bed and left the trash in the middle of the room.
Oh my goodness.
So for me, I was like, okay, like that's the last straw. I need to go
Yeah.
up and talk to them about this so somebody can come and at least take the trash out of our room that had been there for a few days at this point. Of course, they were extremely apologetic. This had not been their intention. There obviously were some messages crossed at some point that they weren't understanding
They
what I had
just want
requested
towels.
to begin with.
More and more towels in this room.
So they came and made up our room, which was great. But also, they left some pillows on the floor. They left a pillowcase with no pillow in it, like a fresh pillowcase was left in the middle of the floor. And they also left some bed making device that it kind of looked like a dust buster vacuum, like
Okay.
a handheld vacuum. It was
Yeah.
like a triangle-y thing that was made to tuck in the sheets real tight on the sides of the bed. And it was just left in our room on the dresser. I was like, "Okay, like, what is going on here now?" So now I
Yeah.
have this device. I'm like, "What?" So I go up to the club lounge. I'm like, "Hey," and they're like, "Oh, did you get your room service?" I'm like, "Yep." And also, here's this. I'm like, somebody must be missing this. Like, and they're not around or in the hallways to be found. I didn't want to just
Yeah.
leave it in the room because I thought if somebody was looking for this thing. So I took it up to the club lounge and gave it to them. And of course, they were super apologetic again. They asked if the manager needed to call me, but at this point, we were going home. So it didn't really matter. But
That's
I'm
an
like,
like, it's almost like somebody had to leave super quickly or something. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, how do you look back at this room and be like,
and
"This
think, yes, that's
is okay."
serviced well. The trash can's in the middle of the room. There's a pillowcase on the floor. And also my little dustbustery item
Yeah.
is there. I don't know. So our final
Oh, goodness.
morning, we sleep in because our flight was not until I think it was 7:30 p.m.
Wow.
and we were flying back out of the same airport we flew into. So it was only a 20-minute drive. We had a full resort day, is what we were planning on. So we slept in. Just after we woke up around 9 o'clock, a knock at the door. You asked for 9 towels. And everyone in the room bursts out laughing. And I just, yes, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah, thank you.
And we had like a mountain. I actually took a picture of this mountain of towels that we had at one point because they just kept bringing them. And like when we used them, we were putting them on the bathroom floor. It's what they ask you to do if you need them replaced. So they're on the bathroom floor. It was like a mountain of towels. That was another thing they needed to come clear out because they kept bringing us towels, but not taking any with them. So we had a
That's
pile, like a mountain of used towels and then like I would say towers of stacked up piles of towels. We must have had like all of the towels in the place because they were all in our room. But yep, so we did get one final and that morning our do not disturb sign was still on the door and they came and knocked anyway. Now I know they can come in if your sign is on for like a security check. We hear
yeah.
about that all the time at Walt Disney World. I learned the hard way. I was once in my bathroom and I was the only person in the hotel room at the time and had just run back for something in the middle of the day and was going back out. And I was in the bathroom and I didn't shut the bathroom door. And I was on the toilet and somebody came, like
Oh,
somebody
no.
security came to chat. Yeah. So that like I learned the hard way. Put the deadbolt in the door if you're actually in the
Yeah.
room. And they did not hear me. It was actually in an Art of Animation family suite, and I was in the master bedroom bathroom. So they weren't hearing me from where I was yelling and they
Right.
came right in anyway. And of course, then they were mortified because they didn't know. It's not what they
Yeah.
intended. And anyway, so I'm used to that kind of thing happening. But this was different. Like usually they will tell you we will not bring something into your room if you don't have the sign off the door. They'd even said to me, make sure the sign's off the door. Well, that didn't seem to matter.
Yeah,
So
they don't get
anyway, so we slept in that day. We had to be out of the room at 11 o'clock. We had Bell Services come and help us out with our luggage and store it for the day for us, which was great. And we had a pool day enjoying the pools at the hotel. And I just realized I skipped over something with my housekeeping rant. I forgot the rest of the day the night before. So real quick, I just wanted to mention because this is relevant with the size. We had been in the hot tub the night before. The kids went back to Disneyland and me and the ladies stayed and went in the hot tub. And while we were there, I see a message pop up on my watch from one kid and then instantly from the other. And I'm like, okay, either something wrong or they're in a little spat.
Yeah.
And I thought something must be wrong because they don't often spat. But they got into a little fight, disagreeing because they had gone to the one corn dog place that they thought had regular corn dogs and it didn't. It only had the nuggets and they got them. But the other one really wanted a hot dog from over at California Adventure from Award Wieners. But they didn't both want to go to California Adventure. Only the one did. I'm like, are you guys serious right now? I'm trying to enjoy the hot tub and spend this last evening with my friends. We did what you little snots wanted this entire time. I love you guys dearly. I know they are super grateful kids, but like I think they were both experiencing like the exhaustion and
Mhm.
the sadness that the trip was almost over. They had a couple things they wanted to do one more time. So I'm there in the hot tub. It's just after 9 o'clock. California Adventure closes at 10. And I looked at Tammy and I said, well, you want to go to the park with me? Let's hurry up and get changed. So we went and got changed and we met Annie just outside of the gates of the park. She was able to easily find us there because everything is so close and compact. It was so convenient. And we went in there and did her mobile order for her hot dog and got to sit there in the park and she had her food and she absolutely loved it. And again, at this point, it felt a little like the studios. They were playing some fun music. You could hear instrumental music in the background. They played Anything Goes, which was the
Yeah.
high school spring
Yeah.
musical this year. So We heard that. So that was just a fun little thing. And after that, we went back into Disneyland Park so that we can meet up with the other two. We hadn't gotten to see the Snow White statue and the seven dwarfs that Walt had received as a gift way back. You may have heard of that story. It's like
Mhm.
overlooking the wishing well. We wanted to see the wishing well. So we did that. And then I got a Mickey pretzel, a soft pretzel, and the kids got churros again before we headed back. So that was our official last night at the park. But I wanted to backtrack and mention that because I had skipped it, and I just love how close everything is because
Yeah.
that never would have been possible no matter what park you were in. I
Right.
mean, maybe if you're dealing with the studios and Epcot and you moved really fast and whatever, but still, it was just so convenient. I don't think I could have gotten from a hot tub at Beach Club into another park in less than an hour, really,
No, not
really
at
not
all. Yeah.
comfortably, at least. This I was able to do this comfortably, I guess is the thing. It wasn't a race. So anyway, we had a great time relaxing in the pool that day, hanging around. We went back into downtown Disney. That's when we did our final purchases. Annie got her blue colored sweatshirt and we got a couple different things. And then we used rideshare to get back to the airport. And luckily, everything went smooth for our ride home. We had a connection in Phoenix, and they did pause us for a bit in the air. Because of some weather, but luckily our connecting flight was also delayed a bit, so we didn't have any trouble there. I seem to always take the red eye home. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm always flying
Yeah.
overnight when I'm coming back from there, but it works well. We landed in Philadelphia around 6 a.m. and drove right home, and I went to bed.
Wow.
I slept for like 5 hours. I slept for the whole day. I was so exhausted. I was rested enough. Like people were worried. My family and some loved ones were worried about me driving home from the airport, but I really did sleep well enough on the plane. We were lucky enough that the person in the one person in our row moved to the row behind us because that was empty. So we had the middle seat available. We were
Oh,
able to
that's
be
very
pretty
nice.
comfortable.
Yeah.
And I was rested enough, I slept solid enough that I was not tired on the way home, and I was
That's
able
good.
to safely drive us home. But as soon as we got home, that was just it. Like, we hauled the luggage in, we took the puppies out to potty, and then we all came in and hopped right in bed, along with
Yeah.
the dogs. They took a nap with us too. I think they were sick of us not being here. So, I think that covers everything, obviously, except for World of Color and Club 33 that we will talk about in next week's episode, because I think those are things that are big enough that they could be an episode on their own. And let's face it, this episode is long enough as it is. You have heard me yap enough. So if you are still with us, thank you so much for listening. This was such a big trip for me. I know I go to Disney pretty often and we travel a lot, but this really was a special trip for us. I am just so happy and feel so blessed that I was able to make this trip happen with the kids and that we were able to have our friends along with us. And I feel like probably in another couple years we may find our way out there again because the kids loved it enough that they definitely would love to return. So
Yeah.
maybe we can coordinate with you, Rachel.
That would
When
be so much
you
fun.
get
Yes.
your kiddos out there, we'll all be out there
Yes.
together.
Your girls can take my kids swimming. That'd be
Right.
wonderful
And,
because I
and
trust
and
them in the
then if
pool.
somebody gets in a fight over a hot dog, my kids can deal with it instead
Yeah.
of us.
Oh, thank you, Missy. I really enjoyed it. Every time I hear trips about Disneyland, it really does make me want to get back out there again. Walt Disney World will always be my home park, but there's something really special to walk where Walt walked, which is what they call it out
Mhm.
there. So it's very special to be out there. And thank you. I enjoyed following along, made me miss the parks myself.
Aw. Well, thank you for listening, and we will check in with all of you next week when we talk about Club 30.